If you think you're in control of your decisions, then you are highly mistaken. We're all influenced by something. Our brains are just wired that way. It feels nice to think that most of us make our decisions after carefully evaluating all the options we have, but more often than not, we're just looking for shortcuts. Our subconscious minds are constantly on the lookout for certain cues or triggers, and that's what helps us make those decisions. Have you ever gone to the supermarket and there was a salesman there and you bought something from him, but after you came home you realized you didn't really need that thing? That's because you were influenced. Now these cues and triggers are what the corporations have been using for years to get you to buy their products. These are the same techniques that scam artists use to get you to give them your money, and these are the same techniques that you can use to manipulate the people around you. Now I know that a lot of people start having moral dilemmas about this. They say that I don't want to know about these things and that manipulating people is unethical. Well, let me ask you something. If you were trying to feed your child vegetables which are good for him and he just wasn't willing to eat them, will you just give up and let him be unhealthy for the rest of his life? No, of course not. Chances are you would try to influence him and manipulate him into eating those vegetables. Is this method unethical if you were using it for good? It's exactly the same thing with influence and persuasion. These are just techniques that you can use to manipulate people's thoughts and get them to comply to your requests. How you use them, either for good or bad, is up to you. I urge you to use these techniques ethically because you can do a lot of good for the world. You can get people to stop smoking, you can get people to help the environment. Now if you still don't want to learn these techniques, you can bury your head in the sand and pretend that these techniques don't exist, and you and your loved ones will continue to be manipulated by the big corporations for their benefit. Or you can learn these techniques and start using them for the good of other people. The choice is yours. So let's begin. The first is contrast principle. So I went to buy a guitar recently and the salesman started showing me a $300 guitar. Now immediately I thought that it was too expensive for me, but he kept talking on and on about the guitar, so I kept listening. I thought, well, since this guitar is too expensive for me anyway, I'm just not going to buy it. As I started to walk away, the salesman then immediately showed me a guitar worth $200 and another one worth $150. Now I started to think, oh, look at these are more affordable. I might actually get them. I ended up buying the $200 guitar. The salesman here used the contrast principle on me. He first showed me the most expensive option and then showed me the less expensive option, so I thought I was getting a bargain on the cheaper guitar. This is also what supermarkets do with the before and after price. They write the before price so you think that by contrast the price has gotten cheaper and you're more likely to buy it. We humans have trouble understanding the objective value of something, so we always need something to contrast it with. We only call someone tall because we see that the other people around him are shorter. We only call something expensive because we see other things that are cheaper. So if you're running a business, make sure that you don't just make one offer. Make multiple offers with different price points so your customer will be able to gauge how valuable your product is. Now how can you prevent yourself from being manipulated this way? It's simple. Just view the thing in isolation. If you're looking at a before and after price, just look at the after price alone and think on your own terms if it's something that you want to buy at that price point. The second principle is reciprocation. Have you ever felt obligated to give someone a gift simply because they had given you one earlier? This is our reciprocal tendency. Humans are social animals and we always want to fit in. We don't want to be seen by society as someone who doesn't contribute and help. So if someone does something for us, we feel inclined to do something back for them. There was a study in which they found that if the waiter gave a mint alongside the bill, there was a 3% increase in tips. But if the waiter gave 2 mints along with the bill, there was a 14% increase in the tips. But listen to this. If the waiter first gave 1 mint, turned around, came back and said, "For you nice people, here's another mint," there was a 23% increase in tips. This is because it made the customers feel special and they felt obligated to give something back. It's the same thing that a lot of businesses do. They might give you a free keychain or maybe even a free t-shirt and they'll tell you that it's free, but usually you'll be more likely to buy something from them in the future because you'll feel obligated to. Now protecting yourself from this technique is very simple. One thing you can do is refuse the free gift politely, or another thing that works is just remembering the fact that just because they gave something to you for free doesn't mean that you have to buy from them. Also, don't be rude about this. Sometimes people are just nice, so they might give you a gift, so remember to use your discretion whenever necessary. Now the third principle is concession. Here's a fun little trick that I used to do when I was a kid. I used to go to my dad and go like, "Hey dad, can I have $50? He would usually say no. And then I would say, "Alright, can I at least have $10? And most of the times he'd just relent and give me the money. Little did I know, as a kid I was using one of the most fundamental techniques of persuasion, a concession. In the book influenced by Robert Cialdini, the author tells his experience about how once a little girl tried to sell him a box of cookies and he declined. Then she said, "Alright, can you at least buy this chocolate instead?" And he bought it. After he had bought the chocolate, he realized that the little girl had manipulated him into buying a chocolate. So the way you can influence people is that first you make a larger request, something that isn't too outrageous, but just large enough that the other person is going to refuse it, and then you make a smaller request. This makes you seem like a reasonable person, so most of the times people just agree to your smaller request. The fourth principle is commitment and consistency. People are more likely to do things if they're committed to doing them in the past. So they had done a study in a neighborhood where they went and asked people to add a very big and ugly "Drive Safely" sign right in front of their house. Most people told them that they wouldn't do it. In another neighborhood, almost everyone agreed to put up the sign. So what was the difference? In the other neighborhood, they had convinced the people to first put a smaller "Drive Safely" card on the kitchen window. Once they had done that, now they wanted to be consistent with their past actions, so they were more willing to put up an ugly "Drive Safely" sign in front of their house. The fifth principle is social proof. Like I said before, humans are social creatures. Have you ever been in a situation where you didn't know how to react, so you looked at the people around you to judge the situation? Well, this is something that we all do unconsciously all the time. You must have seen this on the late night TV commercials, that they keep showing you testimonials after testimonials. They do this to establish social proof. When you see other people talk about a product and they recommend it to you, you're more likely to buy the product even if you know that their testimonial might be fake. But you can also use this to your advantage. If you're speaking at an event, instead of introducing yourself, you can have someone else introduce you. When they talk about your accomplishments and your credentials before handing over the mic to you, it establishes social proof. You can even do this in an office setting. If you're calling a client and you want to show some social proof, you can just have your secretary or a friend call them first, tell the client about your experience, and then transfer the phone to you. Now on the flip side, don't try to do this yourself. Don't try to conspicuously show your social proof on your own. That might just make you come off as a show-off. Now the sixth principle is liking. Now this will not come as a surprise to anyone. Most people complain about the hot girl who got a promotion just for her looks, or the handsome serial killer who can get away with it just because he can fool people with his good looks. We can be easily persuaded by the people we like. Now why do we like certain people? There are many reasons. Maybe you're from the same hometown as the other person and you have a lot of things in common. Or maybe you find them attractive. Or maybe you just feel that you have the right vibe with them. Whatever the case may be, if you like someone, you're more likely to pay attention to what they have to say. Now protecting yourself from this is fairly easy. Next time you're inclined to listen to someone, just think about whether or not their request is actually reasonable, or if you're just listening to them because you like them. Apart from that, to use this to your own benefit, remember to always look your best. Take care of your physique, dress well and maintain good hygiene. Smile at people and be a good conversationalist. You can watch my video on how to get someone to like you. That should help you a lot in influencing people. The seventh principle is authority. If a 10-year-old were to come up to you and tell you the meaning of life, no matter how profound his words were, you will probably not take him seriously. But if another guy who looks like a Greek statue comes up to you and says the same words, you'll probably listen to him like it's the most profound thing that you've ever heard in your life. This is because you will perceive the older man as having higher authority. Now this is actually a very serious problem. People listen to politicians making tall claims simply because they're perceived as having higher authority. Now obviously you want someone who actually has authority to do the job he's meant to do, but a lot of times we can be fooled by perceived authority. So for example, if a police officer walks up to you and in a very confident manner asks you to do something, most of the people would get intimidated by him and do as he asked, simply because he has authority. Now it could also be the case that the man was a fake police officer, which is why we need to be careful of when we blindly trust authority. To protect yourself from this means of influence, whenever someone who has authority over you, like a parent or a boss, asks you to do something, stop for a few minutes and think about whether you would do the same thing if it wasn't coming from an authority figure. And to use this to your advantage, you could show people your authority in a non-obtrusive way. Like if you're a doctor or a physiotherapist, hanging your diploma on the wall will make you seem more like an authority. And lastly, we can be influenced through scarcity. We humans are more scared of losing things than we are motivated by gaining things. This is why all stores have sales, and they'll tell you that the sale will only last for 3 days or something like that. This creates a mindset of scarcity, and you'll start to believe that if you don't buy the product now, you'll never be able to buy it. You can use this for your own benefit as well. If you want to seem more important, you can tell people that you have only 10 minutes when you talk to them. Or if you're selling a product online, you could add a 24-hour countdown to show that the offer won't last after the 24 hours. To protect yourself from this kind of influence, simply ask yourself, do you really need the product that you're so hurried to buy? A lot of times, marketers will create scarcity in your mind and make you believe that you absolutely have to have the product, but usually just stopping to think for a few minutes will help you make the better decision. All of these points were from Robert Cialdini's book Influence, which you can buy from the link in the description. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then please click the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks for watching.